Since 1981, I had the privilege, the good fortune to study with Dr. Fuller 3 times. And then when he passed away on July 1st, 1983, I really felt a complete loss. Yet a responsibility to pass on the knowledge and wisdom he had taught me in my class. So after 1983, I began to make predictions. And making predictions is very risky because you sound like an idiot. And in many ways, I sounded like Chicken Little saying, the sky is falling, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. And if you look at what's happening in the world economy today, for millions of people, the sky is falling. So in 2002, I published this book here called Rich Dad's Prophecy. Again, it was 2002, and what this book predicted was the giant crash coming in 2016. So 14 years ahead of schedule, I was making this prediction. But I also made one intermediate prediction behind that, was that there would be a secondary crash before the giant crash of 2016. So this is me on CNN with Wolf Blitzer, looking like a complete idiot, making a prediction on the coming crash.
If people start pulling out of the markets in their 50s, in their early 60s, and not having that sort of exposure, we are never going to get to a point where our money lasts as long as we need it to. We need to be participants in this system into our 70s and into our 80s, and then we need a plan for withdrawing those assets, just like we needed a plan for putting those assets in.
Yes, and you're putting those assets into those investment bankers that are in financial trouble today. And all I'm saying is, aren't these guys supposed to be the smartest guys on earth? And shouldn't we be careful who we take financial advice from, including the 4 of us on this panel?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of bad advice.
But Robert, you're really that worried about Goldman Sachs and Lehman Brothers?
Yes. I'm afraid the Federal Reserve will eventually or come close to bailing them out. That's what I'm concerned about. And that young lady who says the taxpayers are not in trouble, who's going to pay for that bailout again as the taxpayer?
Lehman Brothers says it plans to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection.
The collapse of Lehman Brothers.
Lehman Brothers collapsed.
Hundreds of bailed out banks are still struggling to repay taxpayers.
Way back in 1997, I published this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I said 3 things that got me in a lot of trouble. One was that the rich don't work for money. Number 2 is your house is not an asset. And number 3, savers would be losers. So that was in 1997. And look at what happened in 2007. The real estate market crashed. The government started printing money called quantitative easing, and savers became losers.
It's no secret that the California housing bubble has popped with hardships spread wide. Real estate expert Robert Kiyosaki predicted all of this would happen back in 2005, but most people didn't listen.
It's the biggest financial bubble in the history of the world.
Hoping this wasn't inevitable, but we have had a big jump in foreclosure filings. Let me tell you a little about this. There are 650,000 homes in the United States in foreclosure right now.
U.S. foreclosure activity jumped 81% in 2008. With
10 million people lost their homes to foreclosure and were forced out onto the streets.
And to this day, millions of people are still underwater. They owe more on their house than their house is worth.
You want to know what real estate's going to do? Look at jobs.
Right.
We still have a bad job situation, so
Right.
it's still a bad real estate situation.
Right. Real estate is only as valuable as there's jobs.
What made you write Conspiracy of the Rich?
It goes back to why don't we have financial education in our schools?
Question: was the financial crisis a creation of a wicked conspiracy? A new online book, Conspiracy of the Rich, The 8 New Rules of Money, exposes what author Robert Kiyosaki says is a twisted tale of how the rich control the world economy through, you name it, the Fed, Wall Street, your schools, and the government that supports these entities. Robert Kiyosaki is the author of the best-selling Rich Dad, Poor Dad series. His first book in the series has held a top spot on the New York Times bestseller list for 6 years running. And he joins us on the program today. Hello, Robert. What is this conspiracy theory? You mean it's a few people at the top handling all of us like puppets on a string? Say it isn't so.
Well, I wish it wasn't so, but I've been a student of this crisis since around 1983, and I could see it coming back in 1983. People that are following the old rules such as work hard, save money, get out of debt, live below your means, and invest in a well-diversified portfolio of mutual funds, you're getting wiped out.
So all coins have three sides. There is no such thing as a one-sided coin. See, all coins have heads on one side and tails on the other side, and the third side is the edge. So in real life, there'll always be people who say you're right, other people who say you're wrong. There's other people who are saying that we should be Republican or you can be a Democrat. See, the intelligent thing to do is stand on the edge. You see, intelligence is found on the edge. The moment you take a side, you say one side is right and the other side is wrong, you become an idiot. And in today's world, we have the battle between the capitalists and the socialists. I say both sides are right, but the most important thing to do is which side is best for you. So stand on the edge, be intelligent, and look at heads and tails. The test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposed ideas in the mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function. F. Scott Fitzgerald. And part 3 is about what is financial education. Because you see, education also comes in 3 sides. On one side, you have traditional education, and on the other side, you have financial education. And our job is to stand on the edge and figure out what's best for you and me. I mean, what are you going to do about the financial crisis? Are you going back to traditional education, or is your second chance found in financial education? So traditional education is like my poor dad's education, which is go to school, you get a job and become an employee, you save money, you work hard, you get out of debt, you buy a house, and you invest for the long term in the stock market. And that's traditional education. And on the financial education side, which is my rich dad side, it's opposite. And that's what makes it hard for most people, because it's opposite. On rich dad's side, it's become an entrepreneur, somebody who hires employees. You understand debt, because debt makes the rich richer. You have to understand taxes, because taxes make the rich richer. And also you must understand markets. Yes, you must be able to make money when markets are going up and markets are going down. See, my concern is if there is this large crash coming, if markets come down, it's going to wipe out these guys on the traditional education side. So the question for you is, which side is best for you? For your second chance, is your second chance going to be found going back to school, traditional school, and getting a high-paying job, or being on the financial education side and learning to have money work for you? Which is best for you? So actually, financial education can be pretty easy. My financial education began when I was just 9 years old. It was when my rich dad, who was my best friend's father, he would teach his son and I about money playing the game of Monopoly. And we all know the great formula for Monopoly. It's 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. So I would play, rich dad, his son and me, we would play Monopoly all day long, and then I'd go home. The difference was my rich dad was kind of talking to us, teaching us to think like rich people. He was like a teacher, a coach, and a mentor as we played Monopoly. And then I'd go home to my poor dad, and he'd say, "What you been doing all day?" You know, I'd say, "Well, I've been playing Monopoly." "Ah! What a waste of time. Go and do your homework. Because if you don't do your homework, you won't get good grades, and you won't get a good job." So that's where my financial education began. See, my poor dad's a great man. He graduated from the University of Hawaii in less than 2 years. He went on to Stanford, University of Chicago, and Northwestern, ultimately getting a PhD and becoming the head of education for the state of Hawaii. So he was academically smart, but he had no financial education. On my rich dad's side, my rich dad never finished school, but he understood how to play the game of Monopoly. So he taught his son and me, starting at age 9, and we played that game probably 1,000 times over the years. We played it until I was in my 30s with Rich Dad. And today, what I do, and my wife does, is we play Monopoly in real life. So this is my question to you. For your second chance, is it time for you to start playing Monopoly in real life? So behind me is the cash flow quadrant. It is book number 2 in the Rich Dad series. And the cash flow quadrant is a very important book. And again, you're going to find out things are opposite. See, on one side of the quadrant, you have E and you have S. This is my poor dad side. E stands for employee. S stands for self-employed, small business, specialty, a specialist, or a star, like a movie star or golf pro. So we have E's and S's on one side. And on my rich dad side, you have B's, which stands for big business. These are the guys like Henry Ford, Mark Zuckerberg, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates. And I stands for investor, but just not any investor. This stands for professional investor. See, most people who invest on the E and the S side, they invest in 401ks, they invest in IRAs and Roth IRAs. These guys are passive investors. When we talk about investor, we're talking about proactive, professional investors. So on this side is my poor dad side, E's and S's, and on this side are B's and I's, and this is my rich dad. So when I was a young man, I had to decide which side was best for me, E or S, B or I. So this is a very important subject now. It's called taxes. Now, most people hate paying taxes. So let me ask you this question. You have E's, S's, B's, and I's. Who pays the most taxes? Okay, so on the E's, and this is true throughout the world, it's about 40%. So if you're an employee, a major part of your paycheck goes to pay taxes. And that's how your wealth is being stolen. If you're an S, which is self-employed, movie star, or a specialist like an accountant, attorney, or a doctor, you pay 60% and higher. So the E's and S's pay the highest taxes possible, and these are the people who went to school and they're told to work hard for money. On the B and I side, which is the rich, the B's pay 20% in taxes. They pay much less, and the I's, the professional investor, pays as little as 0% in taxes. So some of you are saying this is not fair. And I can understand that because most people are on this side looking at this side. But let me just say this to you. Tax laws are fair. You see, tax laws don't care if you're rich or poor. You can be rich or poor and still pay 0 taxes. You can be rich or poor and pay 20% in taxes. See, what is not fair is the lack of financial education in our schools. So these people on this side have no idea how these guys are making a much more money and paying a lot less in taxes. So let me just say this. For those of you who have read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or if you haven't, look at Rich Dad, Poor Dad one more time. Lesson number 1 from my rich dad was this: the rich do not work for money. See, these guys here on the E and the S side, they work very hard for money, and they pay the highest taxes. What Rich Dad said on the B side, you should have people work for you, so you pay less taxes. And the I side, your money works hard for you. Other people's money works hard for you, so that's why you pay less in taxes. And that's what financial education should include. You must know the difference between why some people pay a lot of taxes and why others pay very little. So my question for you is this: which side of the quadrant is best for you for your second chance? Second Chance is an in-depth learning package, primarily for people who want to know more about the B side and the I side. And if you see this bug back here, this is called the Rich Dad Radio bug, because you are who you hang out with. If you're an idiot, you hang out with idiots. And if you're a crook, you hang out with crooks. And if you're a rich person, you hang out with rich people. So the Rich Dad Radio bug here means you can learn more if you want to learn more from people who are really doing the real thing. You see, the reason most people struggle financially is they take financial advice from salespeople. They're called, stockbrokers, real estate brokers, and insurance brokers or financial planners. As my rich dad said, the reason they're called brokers is because they're broker than you. They need your money. So when you see this bug here, it's called the Rich Dad Radio, and it's in Second Chance, and you can listen in. You can drop in on conversations between really successful so-called rich people who are doing the real thing on the B and the I side. For example, if you want to learn more about how the rich pay less in taxes, the Rich Dad Radio Bug has a conversation with my tax advisor, Tom Wheelwright. If you want to learn how debt makes the investor richer, listen in on that conversation. They're about 45 minutes long. They're just great information packets. You just drop in and listen to what rich people are really saying. And for those of you who have young people, we have my friends Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump, sons of Donald Trump the Great, and they talk about how their dad did not spoil them, but trained them to be entrepreneurs, not employees. So this Rich Dad Radio Bug is part of your in-depth learning package included in the book Second Chance. Remember, you are who you hang out with. Birds of a feather do flock together. So in 1994, Kim was financially free. She was only 37 years old, and I was 47 years old. So people kept asking us, how did you guys do it? And so we told them we just played Monopoly in real life, but that didn't satisfy them. So by 1996, Kim and I developed the cash flow board game, as you see behind. This is the most important part of the cash flow game. The cash flow game, again, Monopoly on steroids, is the only game that teaches you to use a financial statement. Now, 99.9% of all kids leaving high school have no idea what a financial statement is. Can you imagine that? You see, on my poor dad's side, the E and the S side, my poor dad says, oh, you have to have good grades. So when you're in school, your report card is A, B, C, D's, and F. So my rich dad on this side said, on the B and the I side, your report card is called a financial statement. So many people leave school thinking their report card's the most important thing. They have a 4.0 or 2.0. Who cares? What really counts is your financial statement. Now, if I was to grade our political leaders on their financial intelligence, I would give them an F. That's all the politicians, from the president on down. They should be fired for running the economy into the ground. And what about all the bankers who really cheated a lot of people? They should get an F. You know, they're the people that actually tell you to invest for the long term in savings and in the mutual funds. They should get an F for bad information. And what about the school system? Now, I'm not blaming the teachers, but the academic system of America, if they have a financial report card, I'd give them an F also, because they're failing to educate people and prepare young people for the real world. Remember, the banker wants to see your financial statement. But the people on this side, they're still living in the past. Oh, I'm an A student, I have a 4.0 average. Well, your banker doesn't care. Your banker wants to see your financial statement, because your financial statement is your report card when you leave school. But if 99% of high school kids have no idea what a financial statement is, no wonder we're in economic trouble. A couple more things. When you look at the financial statement, you'll see over here it says income. E's and S's always want, oh, I want a high-paying job. I want a high-paying job. They want income. What makes the rich richer is they focus on the asset column. It's the asset column that makes the rich richer. So the beauty of playing the cash flow game as many times as possible, it's like the fundamentals. It's training you to think like a rich person and think about acquiring assets, not high-paying jobs, which are taxed. So this is some of the most important things about the cash flow game, is your focus will be on assets, not income. And it'll train you to think like a rich person, not a poor middle class person who wants a high paying job. So this is the power found inside the cash flow game. Kim and I designed this game in 1996 to have people teach people. I'm telling you, this works. This is what Kim and I did to retire in less than 10 years, because we focus on assets, not a high-paying job. And the cash flow game can do the same thing for you, to train you to think like a rich person, not like a poor middle-class person looking for a high-paying job. For those of you who are considering a second chance in the B quadrant or the I quadrant, I'd like to introduce you to my sweetheart, Kim, because the B quadrant and I quadrant is not for everybody. But this is my sweetheart. The smartest decision I've ever made was, getting married to Kim. It's a blessing, almost 30 years now.
Almost 30 years.
And when I met Kim, she was an employee in an advertising agency. But I was most impressed was you were going for the B quadrant.
Yes.
And you had a little network marketing business.
Yeah, I knew very early on I did not want to be an employee. I didn't really know what the options were because I was always around employees growing up. But I got introduced to network marketing while I was working in advertising, and I thought this would be a good idea for me to start to learn what it is to be a business owner. So I got set up with this network marketing company. I was representative, and it was a great, great, great learning experience for me and to what it takes to be an entrepreneur, because if I didn't make the sale, I didn't get any money. And I had to get very creative on how I was going to sell because, of course, like most network marketing, you go to your family and friends, and that runs out pretty fast. So then you've got to go find new customers. So I would set up my little salons at fitness clubs and different places throughout Honolulu, and I would continue to sell. And I'd also learn how to sell and what worked and what didn't work. But it was probably one of the best business trainings I could have had early on.
And you had to teach other people how to sell in a room.
Exactly. Yep. You had to teach others. You had to learn about leadership. So network marketing for me was a great way for me to discover if I wanted to become an entrepreneur.
And so when I met her 30-something years ago, I said, man, she's got beauty, she's got brains, and she loves business.
I do love business.
And we've become business partners for 30 years now. I wouldn't be here without her today. And she and I developed the cash flow board game. For those of you who want to find out if you want to be a professional investor versus a passive investor, if you're tired of 401ks and IRAs and Roths and all that other stuff, that's what we developed the cash flow game for.
Yes, and so we developed the cash flow board game basically to teach people what it was Robert and I did to become financially free. Yes, so we recommend network marketing if you want to move into the B quadrant, and for those interested in becoming professional investors, check out the cash flow board game. So I actually have a business degree, a college degree in business, but I have to say, getting into network marketing, I learned more about what it takes to be an entrepreneur than I ever learned in my 4 years of college.